and most people think play is like, oh, you have to have a toy or you have to have different objects. Oh no, it's really part of everything. I always say play is every day. So and my motto is really, your child sees the play and you see the purpose, because there's always something that you're learning or doing through that.
This is the M Squared podcast featuring author Miranda Mathis. You will hear tips, tricks, and inspiration that will help you raise and educate little ones who are happy, safe, and kind. Enjoy the show. Hi, I'm producer Sarah, and welcome back to the M Squared Books podcast. I'm here with Miranda, author Miranda Mathis, and our guest today is Lynn DeSalvo, owner of the Play with Purpose, and someone who has really harnessed the ability to educate preschool children through visuals and joyful play. So we're really excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks again.
And before we get started, can you tell us just a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm a speech and language pathologist. I feel like most of my life I've been playing, but I'm actually someone who has always loved being around kids. I always knew I wanted to do something in regards to teaching them. I also recognize that I love communicating, playing, and I initially was on the track to do education, to be a teacher. And then I saw a movie, Children of the Lesser God, and I'm like, what is that role? And William Hurt was a speech pathologist, and I found out more about it. And then I went into that field. So I've been doing it for a little over 30 years. I also own a karate school with my husband, so I do that on the side. So I kind of mix my playfulness and teaching through both those venues.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, welcome, Lynn. How are you?
Thank you. It's good to see you, Miranda.
Our kids and kids in general, they love to play.
Yes.
And we all know when it comes to playing, they can do it all day and stuff to eat, of course. But I just want to ask you, when playing seems to be a key part of what our kids do, how does kids, even adults, learn from playing?
I love that question. So one of the things that I always used to say to people, I think sometimes play is kind of undervalued in our society of go, get them. And people are like, play, well, no, that's kind of frivolous. But play really is the way in for children and adults. So it's part of engagement, and it's part of really any kind of successful creation, project, or learning. And so we usually think play is for kids, but when you look at even our jobs, we a lot of the times are doing things that are like we're brainstorming, collaborating, negotiating, all big parts of play. And so, but one of the main things I like to remind people is that kids, play is a child's work. That's their work. That's what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be playing. They're supposed to be exploring. They're supposed to be figuring out how to work with other kids or on their own. And there's so many different types of play, in the sense of playing independently, figuring things out, then playing interactively with other kids. So I'm a big proponent in play. And most people think play is like, oh, you have to have a toy or you have to have different objects. Oh no, it's really part of everything. I always say play is every day. So, and my motto is really, your child sees the play and you see the purpose, because there's always something that you're learning or doing through that.
So what do you think is so special about play and its role in learning?
So a lot of times when you think of school, preschool, I mean, I think it's much easier to think of play when you're thinking of young children, preschool. You're like, okay, they're playing with toys, they're in their centers. And then as kids get older, they're like, okay, now they have to sit in a chair and do this. But really the really good schools and really good education at home and at school is incorporating that part of playfulness to problem solving and figuring things out. So really play is a way to kind of engage each other, yourself, but a lot of times play has to do with what kids are motivated by. So you'll see some kids
Mhm.
that love physical play. They're like, they love to roll around and wrestle and do things in the sand and sensory things. And then some kids love games, and some kids love constructing things and putting things together. And some kids love imaginative play. And most kids love a combination of really all of those things, which is the beautiful thing. So the more that we as educators and parents can kind of see the play in every day, it helps the kids become more connected to us and learn through us.
Mm.
Because really, all learning, language learning, communication is all like imitation. So,
Mhm.
kids are always looking to adults, and especially when you see like an imaginative play, if they go to the kitchen, they're like, oh, they're going to make something for breakfast, like they see mom or dad do. And they're putting things in the sink and washing dishes, and then they're holding the baby and feeding the baby. So all those kinds of things are things they're watching, imitating. So that's why I say, a lot of times parents are like, oh, I might not have time to play. And one of the things I always like to stress is the play is really in all routines, and I can talk a little bit more about specific aspects of that when we get to that portion. But yeah, it's yeah.
Just, you spoke about karate, and my godson loves martial arts.
Mm,
And some parents will see that as, oh, you're just playing, but martial arts, you're learning discipline, you're
yeah,
learning behavioral skills.
yes,
So when you
yes,
talk about play, martial arts play a
yeah,
significant role in learning, and it's fun for kids, but they're
right,
also learning something from it. Would you
right.
agree?
Very much so. So I was going to say, I think, what? I think most people think play, there really is a structure to play a lot of times. So even when you're looking at something like karate, you're looking at, oh, these are skills. Even when you're playing with different toys and doing turn taking, you're learning skills through a bunch of
Mhm.
a variety of different activities, whether you're playing with dolls or, but in karate, one of the things that I always talk to parents about is that when I'm doing different things, like I use a lot of anticipation of kind of like, oh, what, like in the beginning, we kind of have a warm up. And so there's a structure to, oh, we're doing this, but usually it's very fun. It's very playful. So we're jumping, we're doing jumping jacks, we're jumping into the
Mhm.
different, postures of fighting stance and horse stance. And then I do things called, with the mystery bag, much like I do when I'm a speech pathologist, where I have a bag full of animals for karate. And then we're doing all different animal walks. So it's like, but within
Mhm.
that, there's so much learning going on that people don't even know. Sometimes the parents are sitting there and they're like, what? And once I kind of talk to them a little bit about what I'm doing, they're like, oh, I didn't realize you were doing that. So while I'm holding the bag, I'm saying, oh, there's an animal in here that has whiskers and likes to drink milk and
Mhm.
meows. What do you think it is? So they're already using their skills of deduction, like, whoa, what do you, oh, wait a minute. A cat. Okay, so a cat. And then we do the karate cat, like the pound in the karate. But it really translates into so many things. So a lot of times, even when you're doing play with toys, you could do the same thing with simple things like puzzles, where they might have different
Mhm.
animals or things like that, and you might
Mhm.
kind of hold some of the puzzle pieces and have them guess. So there's so many different levels to kind of engaging with your kids on very, with basic toys, with basic activities. Yeah, it's pretty much part of why.
So let's talk about engagement. Can you tell us a bit about engagement and why it's so important, particularly when it comes to babies and our little pre-K
Yeah,
children?
yes, yes. So engagement, part of that is kind of this something called shared attention, where you're sitting down with your baby, your child that you're working with at school, maybe, or pre-K, and you might be looking at something together. But whenever you're looking at an object or a toy or something that's happening, there's always something called shared attention where I'm looking at it, I see that you're looking at it, now we're both looking at it. And so it becomes kind of an interactive thing, which is really the basis of learning all kinds of communication. So if babies are talking and the back and forth of playing, so a lot of times always use a basic example of peekaboo. So peekaboo can be done in like so many different points of the day through routines. So let's say you're waking up and the baby, it depends on how your baby or child wakes up. They might wake up quickly and full of energy, or they might wake up a little slowly. So the way you play in the morning, you're kind of reading what they like doing. And if they like jumping up out of bed, then you could take one of their sheets or their blankets and pull it up and be like peekaboo and start something like simple like that with the peekaboo game. You can do something with their animals where you're singing and singing good morning, but basically you're kind of welcoming them into the day. You can do that again at laundry time when you're doing laundry and something that needs to get done, but you just take maybe a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and take some of the clothing items out of the laundry basket and play a little game of peekaboo with your child. So it's not like you have to be engaged and be playing all day long, but those types of interactions help your
Mhm.
child become more connected to you, more focused on what it is they're learning through you, and it helps with intimacy, engagement, all those things. So it's pretty important.
Right. Do you have any suggestions or tips on the types of toys or things to use for playful learning? I mean, right now you said use
Yes.
clothing.
Oh, that right.
Any other toys or any other tips you have?
Yeah, yeah. So sometimes I say keep it simple because a lot of times people think when they go to buy toys for Christmas, there's so many toys out there right now that are like bells and whistles. They have all different yeah, amounts of batteries and things that go off and bell. And one of the things that I always say is the simpler the toy, the more your child will get out of it, and the more they can kind of explore. So even simple things like obviously block, books, Play-Doh, puzzles, things that are pretty basic. There's so many different ways you can use them. But then the other thing I always like to make clear, especially to parents, because parents are busy, they have a lot of things going on during the day. So even simple things like during the routines of the day, like when your child's waking up, when they're getting dressed, during mealtime, there's so many different aspects to that you can make playful. Just got like I said with the laundry, where you kind of do peekaboo like that, or
Mhm.
when you're getting dressed, you do something playful like, "Oh, let me get your sock." Okay. "Oh, yeah, the sock is going to go on your hand, right?" "Oh no, I meant on your head." And so you're basically kind of getting them to start thinking, "What? What? No, it goes on your foot." So it's a way for like communication. One of the things I always say, and this is very funny, I have a funny story. When I worked in a preschool for many, many years, I would be in the classroom and there would be teachers and teacher assistants, and I would do my group activity. And I'd be sitting there and like, so one of the themes that of the month was clothing. So I would take things out of my bag, like a sock and a hat. And I would say, okay, so now I'm going to put on my sock, and I would put it on my hand or what? No. And like, so then, but a lot of times with the teacher, sometimes I would say something like, I would kind of play dumb, meaning I didn't know what it was. So I'd take an object out of the bag and be like, oh, look, it's oh, and then a teacher would be like, apple. And I'm like, I know it's apple. I was ready for them to tell you. So it's like, so you're basically kind of building in these playful kind of pauses, these playful ignorance, like, oh, I forget. What is that? Oh yeah, and then, so basically you're trying to see, okay, how many words does my child know? How many more can I teach him? What can I add on? A lot of times with kids, they're saying what they do know, and some kids are maybe low verbal or nonverbal. And so there are different ways you can kind of help them through kind of expressively kind of labeling things. But then, oh, can you give me that red crunchy fruit? What is that again? Oh, yeah, apple, or how to
Mhm.
give you.
Mhm.
So there are different ways of making kind of the ordinary extraordinary, in the sense that's what I always think of with play. Kind of like, oh, you're making something, because really the main reason why I use what's in the bag is the whole anticipation. So it's like kids
Mhm.
love anticipation, and adults, they love
Mhm.
mystery.
Yes, we do.
If if you look at what's really popular today, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but online, you'll see a lot of those. There's videos where kids are just opening things. What's inside? And it's a huge popular thing that kids are looking at. So using that kind of anticipation is kind of like wonder. It could be something simple like, oh, it's a pencil, but sometimes it's something fun that they get to play with. So it could be regular objects and other things like that that you're doing. But even kids, I'm thinking about when parents are taking their kids shopping. Like, oh, where is that? Oh, I need that fruit. Where do we go for fruit? What's that yellow thing that banana that monkeys eat? Oh yeah, banana. So where you're playing kind of word games. You're getting them to notice things while you're shopping. And yeah, and just using kind of that daily routine.
Well, what are some recommendations for using these tools to work with kids who have ASD or ADHD?
Okay. So yeah, so I have something that I like to incorporate with all kids, but I definitely do it more when I'm working with ASD or ADHD. I do a lot of routines. I set up routines initially. And this could be and then I also use visuals, because a lot of times kids, the thing that is different from saying something to a child or an adult and then writing it or seeing it is that one message is transient, where if I say something like we're going to the library, or I show a picture of, oh, we're going to the library, or even the word if they're reading, um, they can keep going back to that word and look at it. Oh, yeah, we're going to the library, as a way to remind themselves where they're going. Where if I say something, it might go in, go out, they might forget it, and then there's some anxiety. A lot of times, kids with ADHD and ASD, they're not exactly sure what is coming up and what might be happening. So that creates a lot of anxiety. So a lot of times, what you want to do is kind of talk to them about what will be happening, and then maybe
Mm.
even visually show them something. And it doesn't have to be having pictures of everything. You could have a simple little notebook with you, and if your child is having a hard time transitioning, I don't want to leave the house, a lot of times they might not want to leave because they don't know where they're going, or they're not sure
Mm.
where they're going. And so you can do something simple like, we're in the house. You can make a little drawing of a house if you know how to draw, or maybe just,
Mhm.
write the word, and then say, we're going to the library where there are books, and then we're going to McDonald's after, or we're
Mm.
going to play with your friend, something that's fun too. So they see, oh, first I'm doing this, then I'm doing this, and then finally we're going to end up here, something fun. And what that does is, for ADHD kids, that helps kind of organize and, okay, this is our routine, first, then, and finally we do this. With kids with ASD, same thing, but they also have that kind of warning. That was another thing I was going to bring in, that when you have kids, really any kid, I think, is likes to know what's going to happen next. Because sometimes if you're going from one thing to the other and like, let's go, it kind of creates like, wait, what are we doing? So
Mhm.
there is some time to kind of verbally prep, and then maybe even visually prep. You can say things like, oh, when I count, I mean, in one more minute or 5 more minutes, we're going to the park. In 3 more minutes, we're going to the park. 1 more minute, we're going to the park. So also, if they're engaged in some other kind of activity that they really like, they kind of have a warning a few times and recognize, oh, okay, let me get myself ready for that. And so that way, okay, now it's time
That's
to
good.
go to the park.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
also use a
yeah.
lot of music sometimes because the music part of it makes transitions, especially for younger kids, a little more organized and it seems more, okay, that sounds fun. I don't mind doing that. I do things like walking, walking, walking down the hallway or walking to the library or walking to, yeah,
Mhm.
things like that. And if you're not a singer, you don't have to sing.
Yeah.
Verbal
Well,
reminder.
all of this has been very informational, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask this last thing about you. I know we both were at an author's event. So can you tell me a little bit about your videos, your books, and what spurred you to develop those resources?
Oh yes, definitely. Thank you for asking. Yeah. So it was funny. I went. This actually happened during COVID when I had a lot of time on my hands. I was right before that doing karate and speech therapy in person, and then during COVID, when we kind of were, we did some Zoom classes on for karate, and I also did some Zoom private clients, but I wasn't in a physical space like with the mats because I worked with a lot of preschoolers and some kids that were a little lower functioning that I needed that hands-on kind of feel. So
Mhm,
I did a lot of my work online. But while I had that time, I thought, you know what? What have I been doing over the past 25 years? I really have been. I think part of for me play is creativity, is using my mind. Like, how can I make this fun? So I always think of my job as, oh, this is what I have to teach this child. I have to open up their world to communicate in this way. But how can I make it fun? Because if it's
mhm,
not fun, then it's hmm, then it's this. And when someone's like this or not feeling engaged, how much are they
mm,
learning? Not. They're not
mhm,
learning. So one of the things I always try to do is figure out how can I make something fun. So I thought about most of my sessions when I'm working with all different types of kids. I would work with kids with cerebral palsy, kids on the spectrum, kids just with speech delays or phonological issues. And the main thing I would do is I would always have a routine. Like first we're going to do this, then this, then this, and sometimes we repeat them. Or the routine basically sets up the structure that then you can have some change in it, especially for kids that are on the spectrum. That's something that's really valuable. You're teaching flexibility. But the books and the programs I developed were all part of incorporating whatever I was teaching and generalizing those concepts. So, for example, I'll give you an example. My all my the books that I've written are all based on different themes, but they're based on preschool, like high function vocabulary that are the most frequently occurring words in a preschooler's vocabulary, and then there's some after that. So what I'm doing is looking at a category like food. I should have brought my book so I could have showed you, but anyway, in there I have, seven different basic food objects like apple, banana, cereal, cookie, and then on the next page I have a illustration of that apple in context. So a girl is sitting under an apple tree eating an apple, but there's a little bit more to it than that. Then I put the what's in the bag, the apple in the bag, and then I actually use the apple and the baby doll in play interaction. So what I'm doing is trying to generalize, here's one word, apple, and then concepts around it, and then trying to figure out how am I going to place that in all these different learning environments. And so that's really what most of my programs are about. And you can find them online. The YouTube is free. And then I also have Bella, which I can send you links to, which is an online resource for parents and teachers that really goes through all these ideas in depth. You can look at that too as well. And then books.
awesome. Awesome. Do you have titles to your books where they can find them?
Yes, yes. So basically on Amazon.com, and actually right now I have 7 books. I'm what I'm trying to do is create a whole a year full, so that way it can be incorporated into a curriculum at schools. So right now I have food, clothing, toys, um, things that go, places we go, and then my newest one is emotions. I'm leaving out one. I should have brought them in. Sorry about that. But I do have my little bookmarks, and then you can find them on Amazon.com, and it's through Lynn DeSalvo. So it's in Lynn DeSalvo. And then on my website, you can buy the DVDs that I've made that are through video modeling, and then also all the books as well. And my website is playwithpurposellc.com.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for being here. And I am going to turn this over to my fabulous podcast producer, Sarah.
Thanks, Miranda.
Thanks, Lynn. That was so helpful. I think a lot of people are going to get so much from this, even as adults. I think we sometimes need to know what's coming and that routine.
Right.
That helps us do it sometimes.
I was going to say, I always say people always have their Apple Watches or their calendars. So we all use
makes life easier.
So true.
Totally. So we always like to give people something to take with them into the week or into the month to kind of act on what they've learned in the podcast. So if you could, what can people do? Let people know what they can do this week or this month to fit more play-based learning into their child's schedule.
Yeah. Okay, great. So my biggest thing is just look at your daily routines. Figure and play doesn't have to be like a sit down period where you're sitting for 15, half an hour, 20 minutes. You can incorporate it into, your wake up routine, getting dressed, even with mealtime, setting the table or feeding the baby the food while you're eating the food and taking turns with that. So using routines so that way it makes it not so overwhelming. I think sometimes people think, well, I don't have time to sit down and play that much, but play really only takes a couple seconds, a couple minutes, and throughout the day, I feel like you can find time, to incorporate that in.
I agree.
And I was going to say in the car, anyway. And then the other thing I always say is the engagement part is just kind of paying attention and seeing child seems interested in and liking, and having kind of that back and forth with them. One of the things today with modern technology that is so tricky is that we tend to be on our phone or thinking about, I have to go up to do this next. And sometimes just putting that down and just even looking at our child and, or maybe asking a question or not even asking a question, just being playful and making a face, something like that. They're like, oh, all right, there you go. And then sometimes the third thing I would say is kind of using the moments throughout the day to kind of have those situations where you're maybe pausing, waiting for them to answer something or fill in something. If you're singing a song, like McDonald had a star, or like, Twinkle, Twinkle Little, and then star. And, that kind of that intonation of rising and falling to kind of get them connected into you. But yeah, those are my three main things that I think are pretty easy to take away, not too labor intensive. And libraries, use your libraries, because libraries have a lot of free resources, books, as well as toys. They have a lot of lending libraries too. So if you want to add some toys in.
Yeah, great tips. Those are very not overwhelming. Those are, I think, people can totally use those to fit those into the day. And I agree, libraries, I just realized like in the last few years how cool I've always liked libraries, but you can get almost anything. Like you can check out a computer now and toys.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a great idea. Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you for joining us, and it's been so fun.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, ditto. Thank you, Miranda, for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. And I appreciate you using my books, beautiful, and all the books that I have with your curriculum and your dojo. I just love it. So I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to coming to speak to the kids and talk to you and meet them. So it's going to be phenomenal. So thank you. I really appreciate you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. Ditto. Thank you so much. Thanks again for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All
All right. Bye,
right,
ladies.
everyone. Well, take care, and we will talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thank
All
you.
right. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Head over to msquarebooks.com where you can find all the latest books and hear about upcoming events like live readings. See you next time.